good?
They're good.
Hey, you have to see this. Amazing, right?
It's beautiful.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7 finale video. There were a bunch of Marvel Phase 4 Easter eggs, Avengers Endgame, the Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene with Agents of S.W.O.R.D. and Nick Fury's big space station, so we'll break it all down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing an Amazon giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know what you want them to do with S.W.O.R.D. in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, the organization. So obviously, spoiler warning for everything that happened on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We'll also be talking about everything that's going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe during Marvel Phase 4 as well. We'll just do top 10 WTF and Avengers Easter eggs as we go along, starting with number 10, MODOK. There was a big story that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. producers told about how originally they had intended to use MODOK as the main villain for Season 7. They said that they started writing episodes based on that, but then Marvel came back and retracted their permission and said, no, you can't use MODOK because we're going to be using him in the MCU movies. So the big question now is where's MODOK going to show up in the MCU? I did a video a while ago about Ant-Man 3. There was a story about an early version of a script where MODOK was going to be the main villain of that movie, and he was going to be the person with AIM behind Sonny Birch with the billions of dollars that wanted Hank Pym's quantum technology. No idea if that survived to the new version of the movie. They're working on Ant-Man 3 right now. It's a new screenwriter, so the script is going to be different. There are rumors that they're going to use the Young Avengers characters and set up that team during the movie now, because you have Cassie Lang's stature, and she's just one of the core Young Avengers characters that they have during Marvel Phase 4. Some of the other new ones will show up on the Disney Plus series too. But number 9, the Quantum Realm, time travel in alternate realities. This is where we get into the Avengers Endgame connections and really hardcore MCU Easter eggs. We find out that Fitz has been using the Quantum Realm, Ant-Man style, to travel through time and travel between different realities. This whole season has been the team jumping through time, but it was revealed at the end of the season that the Quantum Realm was responsible for a lot of these twists. So just like in Avengers Endgame, Fitz is jumping between different realities to save the day. The way they're using the Quantum Realm is a little bit different than the way they used it during Avengers Endgame. They refine some of the rules of time travel, so the way they explain it is the quote-unquote time stream explainer of time travel. The way they talk about it in the episode is that you throw a bunch of sticks into a river. The river isn't affected unless you throw in too many sticks and the timelines start to branch off. So there were a couple branched timelines this season that I'll talk about in a second. During Avengers Endgame, the reason for their branched timelines were because they were stealing Infinity Stones, and the Infinity Stones control the flow of time, so they were just making much bigger changes to the timeline, at least temporarily, until Captain America took the stones back. This whole twist, jumping between different realities, traveling through time, is also something they're going to be doing on the Loki series for Disney+, the big Avengers Endgame spin-off, that version of Loki that escaped with the Tesseract. That's not going to premiere till spring next year. We probably won't get a trailer for that for a while, but we'll get some more previews as they go back to start filming really soon. The whole reason that the S.H.I.E.L.D. team needed to jump between a couple different realities is because they needed someone who was dead in the main timeline, so they needed to pluck them from an alternate timeline where they were still alive. That wound up being Quake's secret sister, who was also an Inhuman with vastly different powers. She was super OP, they needed her to defeat the Chronicoms, who were the main villains of the season. But number 8, Deke, if you don't remember, is Fitz and Simmons' grandson, effectively. He came from a future timeline that doesn't exist anymore, so he was sort of existing out of time and place, kind of like Captain America. He volunteers to stay behind in the branch timeline, the alternate reality, so that the S.H.I.E.L.D. team can go back and they can close the window. That's the original 80s timeline where he wound up being a rock god pop star, but S.H.I.E.L.D. had been destroyed in that timeline. So because everybody gets their happy ending, he actually does get a version of a happy ending in that 80s timeline. The government came to him and asked him to lead a new S.H.I.E.L.D. team. So in that timeline, he becomes the new version of Nick Fury. They got way crazier with time travel than they did during Avengers Endgame. So if you thought it was complicated during Endgame, it got way more complicated during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Then number 7 WTF, the Avengers Endgame Thanos Easter egg. So at the end of Avengers Endgame, Thanos brings his ship from 2014 and all of his armies forward in time to 2023 through the quantum realm. All the villains, all the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents do the exact same thing. They each have their own separate armies that they bring through the quantum realm to present day at Earth to have their big final battle. Number 6, there were a bunch of reveals about Quake's secret sister, who's also an Inhuman. If you don't know who she is, her name is Cora. In the original main timeline, she had wound up killing herself, so that's why we'd never seen her till now. So that's where the alternate timeline came in. Fitz goes to the alternate timeline so that they can pluck her where she's still alive. Eventually, she winds up helping the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents use her god-tier powers to 360 no-scope all the villains while they're stuck in the lighthouse. That's a giant underground base where they had taken all their villains' ships to hide out while they were going to cause this big apocalypse and wipe everything out. But then number 5 WTF, Quake winds up dying, sacrificing herself, defeating one of the other main villains, who's this leftover Hydra agent, also from an alternate timeline. The way people call it, it was a big Quake-off battle because he had found a way to steal Inhuman's powers, so that's how he was using Quake's powers against her. But she sacrifices herself to kill him, but then winds up dead in the vacuum of space for a hot minute, till her sister uses one of her other Inhuman powers to revive her. It's a big Easter egg for that Guardians of the Galaxy scene where Peter Quill and Gamora are floating, freezing to death in the vacuum of space for a little while until they can bring them back on the ship. Then number 4 WTF, Fitz and Simmons have a secret child. Turns out, Fitz and Simmons get their kid back that they'd been hiding this whole time to keep them safe. They had a couple other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and Inhumans protecting her, but that child is actually the mother of Deke. So even though the Deke that we've known for the past couple of seasons, their friend, their grandson, is stuck in the 80s timeline, that alternate timeline, they make a couple of jokes about seeing Deke soon, because within about 20-25 years, he'll wind up being born and they'll quote-unquote see him again. They full-blown retire from S.H.I.E.L.D. just so they can live a normal life and just be a family with their daughter. So number 3, the 1 year later time jump. So this is now after the ending of Avengers Endgame. So things have chilled out a little bit. There haven't been any giant space battles in a hot minute. You have to imagine that a lot of this is overlapping with the Avengers Endgame ending. So you have a lot of really crazy stuff happening during that 5-year time jump. Then you have the big final battle with Thanos in Avengers Endgame. Then even though things got a little crazy during Spider-Man Far From Home after the end of Avengers Endgame, for the most part, there isn't any giant, huge cosmic stuff happening. We find out that May is actually a professor now at quote-unquote Coulson University, which I guess is just the internal S.H.I.E.L.D. training program. There's another Inhuman character from earlier this season and last season that shows up and is one of her students. Number 2 WTF, they reveal that Mac is now the new official Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's even wearing a Nick Fury trench coat. That's planet-side, so S.H.I.E.L.D. is still operating after Avengers Endgame in present day, but they're mostly focused with threats on planet Earth. That's why Nick Fury, as revealed in the Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene, is on the Sword space station because he's focused more on threats from outer space, bigger cosmic threats. Max sends Coulson a gift, which winds up being a rebuilt version of Lola, which is a big callback to the very beginning, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Episode 1, the pilot. There's a very Men in Black style scene where the car takes off, but then it changes colors, it transforms, and he flies away just like Coulson in the comics. Then number 1, the big Agents of S.W.O.R.D. Marvel Phase 4 ending scene. So Quake is revealed to be on the Zephyr 3 ship in deep space with her sister and Sousa, who they've kept from the Agent Carter timeline. They didn't bother to take him back to the 1940s. They say they're entering a nebula and they're just looking at it like, wow, this is so cool, getting ready to go visit some new race. The producers were talking about in the past how earlier on the show's run, before Marvel got the rights back to the X-Men characters, they had wanted to do a big Agents of S.W.O.R.D. storyline legit inside earlier seasons, but because S.W.O.R.D. as an organization technically belonged to Fox because it debuted in the X-Men comics, they kept getting shut down on their S.W.O.R.D. storylines. But now that that's not the case, Marvel has the rights to all the X-Men characters back from Fox. That final scene with Quake is meant to be a version of what they had originally planned to do with S.W.O.R.D. as an organization. The way that Quake talks about it, she makes a reference to Astro Ambassadors. So think about it in a very Star Trek First Contact kind of way, going out to visit new space-based races. The whole thing with S.W.O.R.D. during Marvel Phase 4, as you saw during that Nick Fury Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene, is actually going to continue, I think maybe in Falcon and Winter Soldier, definitely for sure during the Wandavision series because of all the set photos that we've seen with the S.W.O.R.D. logos. Also a big callback to Avengers Infinity War. When Nick Fury pulls out Captain Marvel's pager, on the back of this prop, it actually reads S.W.O.R.D. So they were actually setting up S.W.O.R.D. as an organization in the MCU a long time ago. So if there are any other big Marvel Phase 4 or Avengers Easter eggs that you spotted during the episode that I didn't include in the video, just write them below in the comments. And let me know, where do you want these characters to show up next? Right now I'm working on a new Spider-Man Tom Holland video that should post later today, so as long as you have alerts enabled for my channel, you should see that video when it posts. There'll be trailers for Falcon and Winter Soldier and Wandavision pretty soon, also for the Mandalorian Season 2, so there's a bunch of really big stuff coming up. While you wait for everything, click here for the Avengers WandaVision trailer and click here for the Avengers Falcon and Winter Soldier trailer. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.